that don't try to save yourself, saving your physical body or saving your physical existence and your surroundings and your recognitions in the society. We go to such an extent to save all these things, but after that it doesn't let you go anywhere. They say if you're standing next to the ocean and you're enjoying the beautiful surf on the waves, and it looks so pretty, but you try to grab it, there's nothing there. It's like such a fake experience. Rajneesh calls it space flowers, flower made out of space. There's literally nothing there, and yet we are so kind of connived to get into believing that this is real, and that belief has been going on for millions of years, and we never come out of it.
We have to just observe it.
Right.
Observe it.
Right. He's raising the same point. Like when you observe the whole thing, means you're analyzing your whole life situation. Whether am I doing this correctly or not? Am I living my life correctly or not? So am I going after the objects which are not going to stay with me? Why am I spending time with something that may not stay with me forever? So why don't I say something, spend some more time and stay with something that's going to be mine forever? Even because the spiritual existence is trans life, basically. It's trans generations. Once you leave and then you go to the next life, the spiritual existence will be always there. And whatever you earn, you can earn only in the human form. In between the lives, you come to a standstill. There is nothing there. The only time you can advance spiritually is only at the interaction at the material level. See, when you say, I want to come out of the dream, until you see a dream and you practice your awareness, how do you know you come out of the dream? So living this life is a dream by itself. So you have to live it. But that's where your belief, your practicing awareness will come alive. That you go through all these things and still stay aware. Going to the Himalayan mountains and not deal with the rest of the world is easy, because you don't have to deal with anything. But when you deal with the world and still stay aware of everything, that's when your spiritual progress can take place. And that is possible only in the human life, right? So ultimately, the name of the game is to dissolve your ego. You become simple, you become humble, and you're not superior, you're not inferior. You're not here to grab anything. You're not going to leave anything behind either.
You're going to leave everything behind.
Everything. Whatever you got leave. That's it. Really bad Sindhi proposition. Totally anti-Sindhi. Totally anti-Gujarati. No way.
Now learn it.
Except spiritual progress.
Accept spiritual progress.
All material things.
At the time when the death knocks, I tell you, only the spiritual moments where you had dropped your ego, those are the few moments we're going to come alive and you're going to die peacefully, if you had those moments. But in all this race to make the dollars more and more and more, and all those things you have wasted where your ego was necessary. Every place of where you were making money, your presence was necessary. Everything you dealt with other relatives or friends, or you kept your ego alive. I am this, you are this and that. All these things are going to be washed away in the tide of times. Except any moments where you had dropped your identification with yourself and you had an experience of, even momentary experience of the bliss, that will be always there. Running into Mount Morenci waterfall. That will be always there. These are the moments where we want to live for. But to live these kind of moments, we have to have desire to live these kind of moments. We have to create life situations also where we can have these enjoyable moments. So it's not one type of criteria may not necessarily fit everyone, but everybody has to explore their own moments, whichever they enjoy, whatever they enjoy, singing, painting, photography, nature's walks, whatever you do where you are not necessary. We had gone on the motorhome vacations, right, Yellowstone. And right outside Yellowstone, there's a Grand Teton National Park. It's a beautiful place.
It's in Montana, right?
Montana, yeah. So, and I like motorhome vacation. It's like, instead of 5-star, like you wake up in the morning, the birds are chirping, you're in the middle of the woods. And these are all remote places, so they're open like 3-4 months a year. That's it. So hardly any civilization. There is nothing there. So we wake up in the morning, and our whole family had gone. So I said, my mom said, like, give me a cup of coffee, and then I'll just go for a walk. so serene, it was so beautiful. It was like 5:30 in the morning. There was still like a low lying fog on the grounds and the clouds and everything. There was a beautiful 2 or 3 benches. There was like a make-believe church was there. There were 2 or 3 couples were just sitting there and offering, to Jesus. They were praying. It was such a serene. And then I went further a walk, and there was a beautiful lake, huge lake, and there was a moose grazing. And you see the Grand Teton. Grand Teton is really grand. It's like very conical and has a very sharp edges on the top, and has the lake was so serene. You see the whole reflection. And it's like magical. And I just thought about it at that time, right? I said, here, the moose doesn't care what I am, what's my name, what I do for my living, how much money I have, what is my home looking like. It doesn't matter. But I'm just part of every single leaf that has just the same importance as me filling up and making up the whole scene. It just makes you down so low that you are nothing more than a blade of grass, just to fill up the picture. And that's so beautiful. So we have to create these kind of moments, and every single moment that you go through where your ego was not there, these are the glimpses of the ultimate bliss. So our ultimate goal is to be in the bliss 24/7, and imagine that pleasure. So that is our aim, and that's the goal of spirituality.
I guess that's the reason the yogis used to go into the woods, because
Probably
to
it makes
stay
it easier.
close to the nature, not
True.
really to run away from
Agree,
society,
agree.
but to be close to the nature.
Right, agree. I agree. Yeah, that's true. But if your mind setup is not right, then you can create sansar over there too.
True. Yeah,
But
agree.
right, so sansar is not the physical sansar you have to
जहाँ
give up.
जाते हैं हमारा परिवार खड़ा हो जाता है.
Right, exactly.
It's all no mindset.
But I agree what
It's
you're
all
saying.
mindset.
Yeah, from a spiritual point of view,
Yeah.
these kind of atmospheres are
It's
conducive
conducive to.
to reach to a higher samadhi. Yes, I agree.
I mean, it's very hard to have that experience in New York City.
Agree.
You could have it,
With a little
but in
practice.
Manhattan, it's hard.
With a little practice and with a little meditation, you can, but it takes more time, and it will be more tougher to reach that level. That is true. So I have about 5 minutes of discussion on bliss itself that we've been all shooting for. So what is bliss? A mahasukh. So before we understand the bliss, we have to understand what is sukh. And we had, like we said, we had few moments of sukh where we were all of a sudden excited to see our son who's visiting after a long time, or whatever. These situations where you yourself become less important, right? So if you analyze any situations where we were happy, the happiness was not because of the object. And that's the analysis that we have to learn. And we know, because we have discussed it so many times, that whenever any object that makes us forget our identification, we think that that object is the cause of our happiness, which is not true. Because same object may not make other person happy. So object has no value. Only our mental setup is what decides. Same object in a different settings may not do the same trick.
Correct.
Right? So object has not that much importance. The importance is your mindset. So your mindset is where your ability to drop ego in such and such situation makes us happy. So those are the moments of sukh or happiness. Dukh, everybody knows, right? So we are expert in dukh. So I don't have this and I don't have
मुझे मार.
I don't have this, I don't have that. What happened to mine this and what happened? You told me this. Millions and millions of reasons we are unhappy. So once we know what is sukh and what is dukh, and that's when we go further up and go further into the bliss. Same way you look at the natural sceneries in the woods or whatever. Again, those situations created by the nature were so powerful to make you forget yourself. And when you forget yourself, that's when you enjoy the moments of happiness. So it's again not outside either. So even we should not stop at the woods experience or nature experience or our things we enjoy. We have to go beyond that. Vasishtha's yoga, I was reading yesterday, it really defines that when you think that outside material thing is giving you the pleasure and you think that consciousness and the matter are two separate things, it's not true. Say both are creations of the consciousness, because there is consciousness behind that object, person or situation also. Without that consciousness, that object will not be there. So there is only one infinite consciousness. The only thing is that there are predetermined sets of rules kind of set by the consciousness that this object and this object, when they come together, the moments of pleasure will spark out. For example, if you have a taste buds and you eat something tasty, those two objects, the taste buds on this side and the tasteful object on the other side, were destined to have a chemical reaction to generate the pleasure. So ultimately, consciousness is perceiving itself and having these moments of pleasure. So we should remove the concept that there is an inert material world outside and there is a spiritual conscious world on the other side. That is a creation of the mind. It's not the true existence. At the mind level, mind is very tricky. It generates those dual aspects all the time and then makes you choose. I like this, I don't like. So when you say that I'm walking away from sansar, you cannot walk away from sansar. Wherever you go, sansar will follow, because every single material thing will haunt you. Your wife may bother you when you're home having samadhi. You go into the jungle and the crow will be quack, 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 all the time. Then you will hate him too.
Reminding your wife.
Right. so it doesn't really change. So material thing is just doesn't exist.
I have freedom. She is not here.
So even at the material level, you are facing the consciousness. So you cannot walk away from consciousness. That's only our interpretation, and the dual mind is responsible for our suffering. When our dual mind is so active to call that this is good, this is bad, that dual decisions made by the mind gives us the walk away from the present moment. Because mind says this is good, this is bad. Sansar is bad, walk away from it, go into the jungle. All these are concepts created by the mind, because mind loves the duality. That's how it exists. Mind was created to perceive, create, destroy, and deal with duality all the time. Mind is the generator, maintainer, and destroyer of the dual life. Mind is Brahma for material life. For spiritual life, Brahma is Brahma. But mind is so powerful that mind is the world for us. So that's how we get caught into the tricks of the mind. So that's why we have to drop that. So that's why it is important to drop our identification for the outside, and even the outside pleasures, when they come, we have to go beyond the objects. Because the objects, like we said earlier, are the effects and the cause is something else. Because whatever objects makes us happiness, it was created, ultimately you trace it down by the consciousness. So when we go, we drop the effect and only contemplate only on the consciousness comes alive. Every object, every person is a creation of consciousness. And then, whatever we perceive, it does not remain, is an effect. And we think that we interact at the effect level. Like I said, growing a tulip, right? You look at a tulip and he says, okay, I did it. It was so easy to say. But once we realize what are the causes behind and how the bulb was created, how the nature and everything played so much part, that the soil was created, rain was given, whatever. So if you really go through the whole, it's just a play of consciousness. But we, instead of that, stick ourselves to the objects. That's why we have to go beyond Heineken. We have to go behind above every single object that gives us the pleasure and think of consciousness. Then there is nothing but consciousness. At that level, your desire to acquire, hold, grab, give, that I'm a giver, I'm a donor, it's all non-existent. You're never a giver because you never had anything. This was not yours anyway. Paramatma gave it to you, made it, didn't even give it to you, it just happened to be in your hand and you pass it on. How is it yours? So all these concepts drop. The ultimate idea of discussing all these things is to drop the concepts, the notions. The Vasishta's yoga describes as these are all notions, and notions collectively makes up the mind. Notions of duality is also a notion, and if you drop all the notions, you become sahaj, the sahaj samadhi. You become so pure, so natural, and then whatever happens through you, let it happen, right? So you may find guru for all these things. You may not find, but the help of the scriptures are always there. Nature is your best guru. If you really contemplate and be aware of your interactions, not get carried away. Oh, I like the woods, I just like hiking and whatever. But why? Even when you hike, feel the spirit that's alive with every single leaf. Every single tree is talking to you. Every single interplay of the sunlight and the leaves is playing. Look at the beauty. And it takes so much effort for the consciousness to generate. So every single experience, even though, don't stop at that point. Even if you like painting, you enjoy the painting. But then, how much ego-less pleasure it gives you. You realize and contemplate on the fact that it was the dropping of your ego that was giving you the pleasure. So ego is your enemy. Everything else is just fine. So when you do that, that's how you inch toward the samadhi. So if you cannot bow down in the temples where your ego comes, in between, bow down to a tree, bow down to a beautiful sunrise. But do something, but at least drop your ego, dissolve it. And then, at that point, the nature becomes expression of God. At that point, all the objects of pleasures ultimately becomes expression of God. So, happiness, or sukh they call, is derived from the manifest portion of God. And bliss is derived from unmanifest portion of God. So when you go into the deep into meditative state and when the meditation becomes part of your daily life 24/7, then you are in bliss. The difference between happiness and bliss is only quantitative. Like a water droplet and an ocean. But qualitative, there is no difference. Imagine the happiness multiplied infinite times.
And that's bliss.
And that's bliss. So manifest level, don't stop at manifest level. Go at the unmanifest level. And then your sukh or happiness will multiply. There will not be any time or place left for dukh anymore. It will be permanent, perpetual happiness that we call worldly happiness. And spiritually it's bliss. So much for today.
Be happy.
All right.